nice to be back. I'm a little bit rusty, so I'm definitely going to need my notes this time for sure. It's incredible how much happens in just a matter of a few months, right? But one thing's for sure that I find really cool, none of us are the same person. Even the smallest modification constitutes a change. Many have expressed in the comments their interest in furthering their understanding of the ISTJ, especially when it comes to their relationship with an INFJ. You guys probably know this, but all I can ever do is share my own perspective on all of this, because it's the only one I know and the one I can be somewhat sure of. So from there on, just you're welcome to take what serves you and just leave behind what you don't need. The last few months, though, I've been able to see things from a different lens. And these new pair of glasses, let's say, help me see another layer. And in this layer, everything becomes lighter. Lighter in the sense that everything I thought mattered doesn't really matter as much. Everything is just simpler. I mean, I'm still assimilating this new layer into my daily life, and I still fall back into my old patterns, but I do come back to see things from this perspective now, sooner or later. I'll try to incorporate this new layer that I'm referring to into the topic of personality. By the way, I don't know if you've noticed, but I don't really follow a predictable structure with my videos, even if I'm reading what I've written, because the way I write reflects my thoughts, and my thoughts are not linear, which is the reason why sometimes it takes me a while to create new content, because it's hard to pin down my thoughts. That being said, you might need a wider attention span for these videos, because I could say something completely relevant to the topic that I'm supposed to be talking about, but that could happen at any point. It could happen at the beginning, the middle, at the end, and I really never know when that's going to happen. So you're going to have to stick around for most of it. Anyway, so let's get to it. So from reading all the comments that people have shared on these videos, the most common frustration that an INFJ faces when they're in a relationship with an ISTJ is that their ISTJ partner does not share their same level of passion for abstract thoughts regarding philosophical or psychological topics. And they feel disconnected, bored, and not understood when this happens. The INFJ then perceives the ISTJ as too narrow-minded and gets irritated with what seems as arrogant and a know-it-all attitude, instead of adopting a more humble and open-minded way of being. Intellectual humility, because the ISTJ will often just shrug off the advice or input of the INFJ. This makes the INFJ feel unappreciated and undervalued, thus feeling disconnected. They don't mean to make us feel this way. It's not their intention. They really are good people. The INFJ just needs to present the request for tweaks to the ISTJ in a more transactional format that captures most human beings, which is, what's in it for me? Luckily, the ISTJ is receptive to the concepts of middle ground and compromise, which tie very nicely into this. Essentially, what you're going to be doing is your message is going to have a tonality of, if you do this for me, I'll do this for you. Because, I mean, come on, the INFJ, and it isn't perfect either, and there's always wiggle room for improvements in ourselves as well. Again, always meeting in the middle and finding out compromise that fits both. Something else that I want to mention is that, for the most part, the ISTJ doesn't really experience the inner turbulence or has a self-inflicting brutal critic the INFJ does. And usually the pain that emerges from these two things are what can drive people into philosophy and psychology. The brutality of their inner critic and the inner turbulence from past traumas. That doesn't mean that the ISTJ isn't curious, but they just don't solve their internal conflicts like that. They don't go down the rabbit hole. They usually just take their struggles at face value and they apply a very stoic approach. That's why they might seem to the INFJ as flatliners, because they're generally just very stable individuals. Yes, they can be stubborn, but they're stable, which is a trait I've read many others notice as well immediately in the ISTJ. And it is this one trait that will keep the INFJ in the relationship with the ISTJ, because they realize just how valuable this one trait is to the INFJ in particular. INFJ does need the stable ground to fly on, whether you want to admit it or not. If you put an INFJ in an environment that's too unstable, too often and prematurely, they're going to have difficulty addressing their own internal dilemmas because they're going to be much more concerned in fixing this external unstable environment and anyone that's in it before they can finally feel like they can move inwards in trying to solve their internal conflicts. This is because the INFJ has a selfless nature. They will often put other people's pain and suffering before their own. This doesn't mean the INFJ can't handle a chaotic environment or chaotic people. They absolutely can. But what I'm trying to say is that what's most optimal for them is a stable environment. And this is something I truly believe gains more value as the INFJ ages. In other words, as the INFJ grows older, it does eventually start to appreciate the stable and boring environment much more, because stability indicates that all is well. Sometimes no news is good news. Then comes the boredom factor for the INFJ. This is also something that I believe does even out as they get older. And this part might contain some thoughts that do step away from the superficial aspects of personality. One day I did this mental exercise, and I visualized taking my INFJ mantle off. Because when we're wearing our personality mantle, we're not only immediately limiting our perspective, but we're also reinforcing the polarities we find among different personality types. Essentially, what we're doing is we're strengthening the habit of judging between what we perceive as good and bad, instead of accepting things as they are and not getting caught up in the drama. So I just sat for a moment, just being a nobody, because we're really all nobody, just pretending to be somebody. So there I am, looking at the dilemma of boredom. Now seeing it from a non-attached perspective. So once I was there, I was very honest with myself. And I thought, if it's not boredom, it's going to be something else. If it's not boredom, it's going to be the frustration from their rigid-mindedness. It's going to be the irritation from their lack of intellectual humility. It's going to be this, or it's going to be that. It's going to be this, then it's going to be this. It's always something. And so let's say we tackle each and every one of them and we help them out. But still, that doesn't get me out of it. I'm still trapped in the game of continually falling for the illusion that by having X or changing Y will bring me sustained satisfaction and fulfillment. When we know, I know very well that that's not true. So I asked myself, when is it going to be enough? When am I going to finally stop seeking externally and finally just start seeking internally? Because that's where it's at. So anyway, I shifted the responsibility back on me, something that I had forgotten to do. If I get bored, that's my problem. If I get frustrated, that's my problem. The ISTJ is not the cause of my boredom or frustrations. It's my own perception. Now we're getting really into the layer that I was talking about at the beginning. In this layer, you really acknowledge that it's all a matter of perception. There's a fantastic quote that I recently heard by Richard Alpert that says, "Wherever you look, you see what you're looking for." In other words, if you're looking for the good, you're going to find the good. If you're looking for the bad, you're going to find the bad. You're going to find the good in the bad because that's what you're looking for, and vice versa. In psychology, it would be phrased as motivation affects perception. Meaning, if you're in a certain state of mind or mood, that's going to be the filter through which you see the entire world around you. It's going to shape your reality. If you're starving for love, let's say, you're going to notice that all the romantic couples are so happy in their relationship. If you're obsessed with power, you're going to see through the lens of power and how to gain more of it or how to protect it from being taken away from you. If you're dead tired and need some serious sleep and you happen to be walking around, well, you're going to look at all the benches out there as potential sleeping spots. These are just a few examples. So going back to the personality stuff, if the INFJ will have bouts where they're going to see the ISTJ as a hindrance to their personal growth. But the reality is that there is no particular person, there's no particular personality type that can do that. You're never in a room you're not supposed to be in. I don't remember who said that. So whoever you're with, whatever situation you're in, accept it with all its parts. Unless, of course, you're being psychologically or physically abused. It all boils down to what's inside you. Your struggles are yours. They're yours, and you're probably going to keep them forever. So you can't keep running away. You can't keep modifying the things that are on the outside. You can't keep replacing the people that are on the outside. You can't run away from it. So you have to just become friends with these things that you have inside you. Just invite them in. Finally, just turn around and invite them in. Just come on in. Just do whatever you want. That's it. That's all it is. They're just things that are, that's it. Just unattached, invite them in. So that's kind of what I have for you. I hope that helps. I'll see you guys next time.